there is a sort of right-wing wave that seems to be breaking all over the world to some respects, except maybe in Africa, where we need it the most, ironically.
No, I don't think that's true. I think there's a few countries around the world where their right-wing wave isn't actually materializing. I think a good example of that is probably Australia, because there is no right-wing. England, there is no right-wing. Canada, there is no right-wing. And I think to a degree South Africa suffers from that too. If you think about it from a political point of view, who is our right-wing party? I can't think of them, man.
Well, I mean, there is like the ACDP and Freedom Front Plus and the PA, all of which are nominally right-wing. There's no right-wing party that is sort of universal.
I think that's true, because if you look at ACDP, you obviously focusing on the Christians, the PA is obviously focusing on the coloureds, and the Freedom Front Plus is focusing on, well, the Afrikaners to a large degree. So if you look at it, their constituency is very demographically linked. So it makes it very difficult to kind of have a form of national appeal and appeal to everyone. And he says it's very difficult to ask some blacks in the middle of a township in Kaidisha to vote for Freedom Front Plus. You know what I mean? It's like, they might, but very unlikely.
As we mentioned in the video last week about Argentina, they just have Javier Milei, who, you know, is an anarcho-libertarian, anti-abortion, you know, a libertarian conservative for the most part. And Argentina has been overtly left-wing for like 60 years. Maybe South Africa just hasn't suffered enough to become right-wing. Maybe that is essentially the issue. It's either that, or there hasn't been a concerted effort to actually be overwhelmingly right-wing in a nationalist sense as a political party.
No, but I mean, we know that we've spoken to Gayton, and Gayton has plans to try to be a broad spectrum, right-leaning party that appeals to everybody. It's very difficult to break away from the, should we say, the demographic narrowism that currently occurs with a lot of places. I mean, Gayton is primarily a coloured party. The PA is a coloured party. He's a coloured who attracts coloureds, so it's very difficult for him to go after the Afrikaner vote because he's worried that he'll lose the coloured vote. And this inevitably becomes what happens in South Africa. There's no unifying political party that has like a broad spectrum appeal. With that being said, I think, you know, we got criticized quite a bit on one of our live streams because we made the comment that you have to remember that politics isn't a short-term game. Politics, you can't judge politics on the next 2 or 3 years. You have to judge it in the next 20 years. So it's very difficult to make short-term decisions based on 20 years worth of political history. It's like, and we see this quite a lot, right? I mean, people are like, I'm going to immigrate. And we talk about this a lot. I'm going to immigrate because the next 2 years don't look like they'll be very good in South Africa. Yeah, but what's the next 20 years going to look like? And the answer is, everybody's like, ooh, Zimbabwe. But the actual real answer is, you don't know. Because 20 years in politics is a freaking long time, man. Like, it's a significant amount of time. Bear in mind that, you know, if you went back 20 years ago, we were in the middle of the Thabo Mbeki era where everything seemed like it was going in the right direction because we were having great economic growth. So to get to where we are today, at the same time, England was primarily white in 2003, and now it's like the demographic shift with the boat migrants and mass immigration has shifted parts of London now to 11% population white. 20 years in politics is a very long time. And so if you look at it, it's very possible that the problem South Africa, as you rightly say, possibly the problem we have, is we just haven't had 20 years worth of absolute shit.
Yeah, and every won't happen during the course of next year. But if you look at how these right-wing parties have won, like they've won based on hating something, right? So Donald Trump hated immigration and he hated the left, and people are like, I also hate those things. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. Same with Milei, same with Geert Wilders, same with everyone else. But number two, they hate X, but they love Y. And Y is they actually love their nation. You can't have one without the other. It's like, that's why Julius Malema won't get anywhere. The guy doesn't love South Africa. He hates whites and he hates capitalism, but he loves Africa. He doesn't love South Africa, which is why he's not going to get very far as a political actor. If you had a conservative right-wing Julius Malema type who is nationalist, doesn't take shit from anyone, and attacks everyone who is against him, the EFF could be a 40-50% party by now, very easily.
Yeah, the EFF have to hate their nation, mate, because remember, the EFF are a revolutionary party. And as a revolutionary party, they have to hate the nation in order to destroy the nation, in order to reform the nation in the image that they want it in. Obviously, Stalin, Leninist type bullshit, right? So you can't really turn around to you and say, well, we love our nation, because then everybody would be like, well, then why do you want to overthrow it? Should you want to look after it and grow it? So, yes, the EFF are a revolutionary party, and they have to hate the state.
But if you think about it, fundamentally, if the EFF were a conservative nationalist party, cared about South Africa, spoke about the interests of South Africans, that party could be a 25-30% party. So I think the model for an authentic conservative nationalist political party is already there, and it's ironically called the EFF.
Yeah, how so? Explain.
Unashamed of who they are, don't take shit from anyone, forthright in what they say, and don't care at all about the consequences of their speech. You need someone who has that testicular fortitude on our side of the equation, for once. It would be nice.
We don't have anyone on our side of the spectrum that has that. That's the problem. That's inevitably the problem with South Africa. And the parties that we do have that are unashamedly that talk about themselves, as we said, it's like Gayton, but he's mainly a colour party guy. Freedom Front Plus, Afrikaners. We don't have any broad spectrum political leaders that are unashamedly just pro-South African. They just don't exist. That's inevitably the problem with South Africa.
Yeah, but why is that? Why is it that 70% of South Africans are conservative, but politically there's no one that actually serves them as a conservative? It seems like the biggest market possible for a new political party, and it's just not being filled. That's remarkable to me.
You can't judge South Africa based on short-termism. You have to judge it on the next 20 years of the politics. 20 years in politics here is a long time. Will this happen in the next 20 years? Undoubtedly. I mean, it happened in freaking Zambia, mate. And look, they're having economic growth. It is happening in places in Africa. It is happening. It's just that we don't have the political party. And so many commentators at many points in times have actually said the failing of South Africa isn't a failing of the ANC. It's a failing of the opposition to make themselves a reasonable alternative to vote for. And it's true. The failing of South Africa is the failing of the opposition. But that failing of opposition isn't going to be there forever. 2024 is important because it breaks the ANC's majority and it puts in place coalition governments. Once coalitions become a norm, getting a 30% government becomes kind of like a big achievement, like in Holland, or even what we see in places like Argentina and so forth. At that point in time, the opportunity for a far-right type individual who's deeply nationalistic wants to grow things, that becomes more of a realistic opportunity.
Yeah. Once the state fails, the people understand that they're the only things holding this place together, and therefore a truly diverse nationalist party could rule this place in the not too distant future. Let's see. Let us know in the comments down below. What are your thoughts on this?